Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your kind presence and association as we continue Journey Through Divine Love, Session 5. Let us hear Srila Prabhupada singing Jai Radha Madhava, and then we'll continue.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Om Gyanatimi Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Thapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaskute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Vishwambhataye Krishna Presthaye Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pastachar Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna and welcome back. Let us see if there is any questions or feedback from last week's sessions. Anyone has any points, clarification, questions that you have? We covered the first shower of nectar, the cloud bank of nectar, Banduri Kadambini, and we started discussing the first and second part of the second shower. Amavati and then Ninikandi says, Hare Krishna, crossing Pacific Ocean, serious endeavor requires effort and time, similarly going back to Godhead. Yes. According to our journey and destination, we should be prepared mentally, physically, emotionally. We should be prepared. We cannot think, okay, I'll, even though I meant to swim for 8 hours a day, I'll just practice swimming 1 hour a day and see how it goes. Nope, that's life-threatening. So same thing in spiritual life. We need to really understand. That is why Prabhupada gave so much information so that we have a clear picture of our destination. Then 2 leaves of Bhakti Lata, being Kleshagni and Subhada. One smooth on the top of that leaf is Raganuga Bhakti, and the bottom is Vaidhi. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Thakur had signed on the temple, right? So that was, yes, temple worship, the ideal of Rajadam, chant without offense, and always revealed itself in our heart. Our goal is Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Yes, and specifically our goal is really to become servants of Srimati Radhavan. Bafana Prabhu says, in that Prem love, God is attained through achieving certain stages. It somewhat sounded very much a commoditification. I may be wrong, but a silly thought. Someone said, if you're not initiated, one cannot strain to Prem. It just increases anxiety about where one is and where one is headed to. The mind is overwhelmed by seeing the rat race. Please let me speak just my reflections. Yes, and we all meant to have reflections. Because if we don't have reflections and we don't contemplate, that point, and the philosophy, the knowledge is not going deep. It's very shallow. If you want to get the jewels of devotion, you need to dive deep and dive deep into reflection, into understanding. So, yes, Bafana Prabhu, there may be those that say what's the use of this? It's like stages. We should just chant Hare Krishna and be happy and go back to God. And there may be different reasons and arguments people give. And they all have a right to have their perspective to whatever is presented. That is the free will that everybody has. Here's the thing. The level of expertise, the level of advancement, the category of acharyas that we have in our line are no ordinary personalities. Just like if Krishna, or let me give you an example that Prabhupada had. So one gentleman came to Srila Prabhupada and said, God doesn't eat. So he has a right to his view. So Prabhupada responded, Krishna, he's God. He says he eats. And you say God doesn't eat. Who should I believe? Obviously, I'm going to believe God. Why should I believe you? The condition so. So you have a choice. Similarly, like this, there may be so many reasons why people may, not gel with this knowledge, and that's okay. But the way I look at it is, if these great exalted acharyas who are personal associates of the Lord, who have come down, and they've come down not due to karma. They have zero karma. They've come down personally by the sweet independent will of the Lord to give us this knowledge. And if they, and in this case, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is giving this to us, there has to absolutely be a very, very valid reason. And therefore, we accept that this knowledge that Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is giving us is conducive for our bhakti, for nurturing our devotion. So therefore, others may say, and others may have a different perspective. We accept the acharyas, and then we benefit from it. And yes, it looks like a commodity. Why? Because it is scientific. It is something that one can get and experience. It's not hairy process and gets the mercy. One gets love of Krishna. Manti says, so my internet is a little unstable. If it cuts out, let me know. I may have to switch internet, but for now, let's proceed. Amanti says, Hare Krishna, last week we spoke about free will. It made me curious. Do we trust our intuition, even though we are influenced by the three modes? Very good question. Yes, you trust your intuition as long as it's in line with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Otherwise, don't trust it. Like, for example, okay, let me give you an example. So there was one soul who read SSR. He read SSR and Science of Civilization book. And then at the back of the book, we have a list of addresses. So temple addresses. So he looked at the back and there was no address specifically in his zone at that point in time. So, he closed the book and then, he wanted to meet the devotees, but life got in the way and he carried on. But he definitely wanted to meet the devotees. Sometime later, he was going to work. And going to work meant he gets onto the bus, goes into town, jumps off at a specific cross-section of the road. And then he crosses the road let's assume going straight 2 blocks, and then his work is there. So he did that every day. One day, he got off the bus, he came to the stops, the traffic lights, and instead of crossing straight, going straight to his work, something in him, intuition, said, turn left. Now he knew, I can't go left because that's not where I work. But the intuition was so strong that he had to follow it. He couldn't decide, like, oh, this is wrong. But internally, he had to follow. So he followed. Because it's not like dangerous. It's just that, okay, let me just go. So he goes. And then, the intuition he's getting, the super soul really is guiding him, giving him signs to go left, to go right. And he knows that he's actually going off track from work. But after 2-3 turns, right in front of him, he sees a devotee distributing books. And he was so happy. Oh, have you been? I've been looking for you guys. Do you have a temple? And then he, connected with the devotees. So because of his sincerity, Krishna super soul inspired him to go and meet the devotees. So like that, we may be inspired, but sometimes we may get certain feelings, certain intuition. It's always good to validate. Right? We shouldn't just ignore certain signs that Krishna gives us under the excuse, well, it's all 3 modes. Yeah, Krishna can act through 3 modes. Krishna can even act through drunkard. For example, Srila Prabhupada was ill in America. He had a stroke and heart attack. And Prabhupada was in bed. And they were trying to get doctors, but it was some sort of holiday season. And Brahmananda Prabhu was trying to call doctor after doctor, and nobody was available. Eventually, they did get one doctor, but he was drunk. And he came. So he came, saw Srila Prabhupada, and he said, this man is praying too much. He should get some exercise, walk. Devotees, wanted to sort him out, but Prabhupada tolerated, and then he left. The next day, Prabhupada started his morning walks because the doctor said so. So Prabhupada didn't say, oh, you're a drunkard, how can you know? Krishna can act through many souls, even through the modes of material nature. And because of that, we have volumes of transcriptions of what we call the morning walks with Srila Prabhupada. Conversations and morning walks with Srila Prabhupada. Where Prabhupada would ask questions and devotees would ask questions. They would discuss and debate and talk about so many subject matters during these morning walks. So yes, we don't neglect it, but we should always try to validate. Right, so today we're going to cover the second shower of nectar, or at least continue the development of bhakti from Shraddha, Sadhu, Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, as well as the divisions of Bhajana Kriya. And we started last week discussing as the Kripa sprouts, there's 2 leaves, Kleshagni and Subhada. Today we're going to discuss in a little more detail Kleshagni. Tomorrow we're going to discuss Subhada, and then we'll start with faith and move systematically discussing the Kripa. So before we get into the subject, question: how many of you who have started practicing the process of Krishna consciousness experienced that a very strong bad habit just disappeared? It's like out of thin air. It's like, where did it go? Anyone experience? You can just say yes or no. Anyone experience that you're practicing Krishna consciousness however many years, and all of a sudden, like, hey, where did Where did that go? I'm sure I had that. That's like, it's when? It's gone, disappeared. Where did it go? Right. So that experience is there. Yes, experiences after observing Karti. Good. Right. Excellent. Now, how many of you have the experience that you have a bad habit, a strong desire, material desire, but it's big. But as you're practicing Krishna consciousness over however months or years, you notice that it's actually becoming weaker and weaker. So it's not gone, but it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker over time as you're practicing. Anyone has that experience? So Hemavati says yes. Uki says yes. Shamananda says yes. One says yes. Good. Right? And that's, so we could ask the question, why? And it's true because I'm practicing devotional service, but where is that? How is it happening? Why is it happening? So that's where we're going to discuss in the category of kleshagni. Klesha means suffering, and gni means to destroy. So these two leaves appear, and their results manifest from the beginning, right from the time you start practicing, even as a new bhakta chanting one round, throughout the journey of your spiritual life. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that kleshas are of 5 types. Klesha means suffering. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Karmic reactions are of 4 types: prarabdha, aprarabdha, rudha, bija. Another name for rudha is also kuta. The level 1 cause is for us to understand the overall journey and to memorize the different stages and to memorize the different aspects within the stage. So your homework is to try to memorize these different stages. Now, we're going to discuss Kleshagni today. Tomorrow we'll discuss Subhada, which means auspiciousness. Refers to divine qualities such as disinterest in material affair, mercy, forgiveness, truthfulness, straightforwardness, steadiness, gravity, respectfulness, humility, all good fortune, and so on. The Bhagavata says all good qualities of demigods reside within devotees. So today we're going to talk about Kleshagni. Klesha means the cause of suffering. What causes us to suffer? And how does bhakti help us in that? So a high-level view of what does it mean to destroy kleshas. In life, we create, or due to our interaction with sense objects, we have impressions that are created. These impressions, samskars, vasanas, create desires for or against those impressions. Then the desires causes action. The action causes suffering. And here when we talk about suffering, we're not only talking about good and bad. We're talking about pious and impious, because they both fall in the category of klesha, suffering. Just like Prabhupada says, if you steal a diamond, or you steal a cucumber, you're going to get a reaction. So even piety is binding. Impiety is binding. Sinful life and not sinful activities are binding. So we get reactions. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we get a reaction, and we also get future reactions that may come. Just like in this world, we also acting. And because we're acting, we are living our past karma, and we're creating future karma. Okay, so that's in essence what happens. And spiritual life deals with all these aspects, especially bhakti. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discusses 5 aspects that leads to suffering. And you could say 5 aspects that lead to suffering on their own, and also that really comes out from the main cause of suffering, which is avidya. And avidya means ignorance. We'll go just briefly, and then we'll go a little into detail. So it's all starts off with avidya, ignorance. That ignorance allows us, together with asmita, which is false identification, allows us to have attachment, raga, and dvesha, hatred, attraction and aversion. And as we become absorbed in these dualities, attraction and aversion, we become bound and we suffer. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur takes this 5 causes, these 5 causes of suffering from Patanjali in his second chapter, text 6. Patanjali says, avidya smita raga dvesha binivesha pancha klesha. Okay, so this is basically exactly where he's taking this understanding from. So let's discuss first ignorance, avidya. So ignorance is the root of all other kleshas. It is not ignorance in an intellectual capacity, but in the sense that we are oblivious of our true nature, that we have forgotten or masked our spiritual essence. We're mistaking the transient for the eternal, the impure for the pure, the stress for pleasure, non-self for the self. The primary symptom of ignorance is identifying with the lifeless body and its byproducts. I'm this body, and everything related to me is mine for my enjoyment, my control, etc. So this is the root cause of all other suffering. If we can deal with this, you will reduce your suffering and eliminate your suffering. Then asmita, false ego. False ego is a false sense of self, the identification with I, me, mine. It is the feeling that we are separate from each other, from nature, from the interconnectedness that surely unpins consciousness. The Sankhya philosophers similarly call the identification of the individual soul with material energy asmita. So we have false ego, our misplaced identity. Then the next is raga, attachment. Raga is wanting, craving, coveting, and in some cases addiction. It is the craving for material possessions, the drive for power, the ambitions, and clinging to feelings, people, and situations that are the obstacles we need to overcome on the road to freedom. So all these on their own causes suffering, just like if somebody's got an addiction. We know that the original cause started off with ignorance and false ego, and now it led to attachment or addiction, and then that addiction itself causes suffering. Then hatred, dvesha. Dvesha is aversion to distress and its causes, the opposite of rag. This is where we push away from people, places, and things. Envy, hatred, aversion. And you'll see that these two aspects, the dualities of material existence, raga and dvesha, bhoga and tyag. And then the fifth one is abhinivesha, fear of death. Abhinivesha is a tendency, abhinivesha is a tenacious will to live and a fear of death. And in the wider context, we could say it is the fear of loss or change. We don't want to change. We love to be in a comfort zone. There's fear of death, fear of loss. This is also abhinivesha, and it's also absorption in raga and dvesha. Now we'll just go a little more in detail to understand these 5 aspects. So the first one is avidya, ignorance or delusion. And in the context of the journey to love of Krishna, it specifically also refers to vasana or impressions. Because the impressions will lead to different desires. Impressions of past enjoyment or suffering, to mistake the impermanent to be permanent, to mistake full of misery to be blissful, to mistake impure to be pure, to mistake that which is not the self to be the self. Why called as ignorance? Because the soul cannot enjoy or suffer matter, since matter has no consciousness. There are unlimited impressions, and we can access all these impressions. Your senses, when they come in contact with the objects of sense, or the objects of the senses, they create specific impressions, and every single interaction that you ever had with every single sense objects, with every single of your senses, from every single species, since time immemorial, believe it or not, is recorded forever and imprinted in your subconscious and subconscious mind. It's there. They're all there, and you can access, and they can surface and cause you to desire an act. That's why we have to be very careful of our association. Someone might say, what's wrong if I just associate with my drunkard friend? The challenge of that is that every single one of us have a desire to drink alcohol. Even me. And if I associate with a drunkard, then that association can trigger that desire because I have an impression that was caused because I drank liquor sometime in my past. And that impressions are still there, and they can surface. As soon as we look at any object of sense gratification, we respond, sometimes involuntarily, because of those impressions. So this is avidya. This is our root cause of suffering. Now, because of that ignorance, we get reactions and we get a material body. And then we get asmita. Asmita means egoism or I amness. According to your body, you get a specific false ego. The real ego is dasosmi. I am servant. That's real ego. But we get So we get a false ego, a false identification for us to enjoy separately from Krishna. I'm male, I'm female, I'm boss, I'm father, mother, I'm president, I'm uncle, I'm guru, I'm president. These are all false identifications. So those identifications allow you to act in specific ways. And it allows you to then go through the cycle of transmigration, of being born in a specific family, of having identity crisis due to different conflicts of false ego sometimes. Sometimes it changes within the same body, because your roles can change, so identification can change, but it's related to the body. So strong identification with the current body alone, and all other impressions are shielded. What is that is, because I have a false ego that material energy covers me with, like in this case, I'm born in this world and I'm thinking I'm male and I'm human. So because I'm thinking I'm male, I'm human, in my past, I may have been female, I may have been an animal, so my false ego was totally different. Now I'm male, I got a male body, so therefore my false ego is I'm a male, and all my previous impressions related to female and related to animal species is now covered. And only those impressions that are related to the male body begins to surface. Though all past impressions are stored, we don't have access to these impressions. So here's an example of how one is covered according to a specific species body, but the impressions may surface, and that may also be facilitated by the supersoul. So example, the calf runs to the udder to get milk. You see this when the mother cow gives birth, immediately the calf starts to stand, and it knows exactly where the mother's udder is. Human male attracted human female. Child sucks mother's milk. When grows up, asks for other food for nourishment as it grows. The supersoul facilitates by giving access to those impressions like or needed for the current body. Okay, so that's also where we talk about intuition. When you have a conscience, that's also coming from the supersoul. So this is asmita, this I-ness, false ego. Then raga, attachment. Likes and dislikes are there, and raga is attachment, attracted for things that bring satisfaction, pleasure to oneself. However, if we have repeated unpleasant experiences for the same object, we may start disliking it. So we may start, we like an object, right? Just like, let's say I eat a samosa, and I eat another samosa, and I eat another samosa. So I'm getting pleasure, but then after a while, as I eat the samosa, I'm getting negative experience, and I may have such a negative experience that what started off as raga turned into dislike, turned into dvesha. Or, couples come together and they're infatuated and they're in love and they like each other. And then because they haven't learned certain skills required in marriage, it's amazing how so many people get into marriage thinking it's automatic. Nothing is automatic. Nobody's going to dive into the deep end of a swimming pool without learning how to swim. Yet, so many people just dive into marriage without learning how to deal in that relationship. So, and that's why we do the Grihastha course, to make sure that couples are prepared. So couples fight, and what was in the beginning attraction, trying to serve each other, trying to please each other, turns to be distraction or aversion, and not just aversion, but drastic aversion, strong aversion of dislike, where they can kill each other. So this is there. Then dvesha, repulsion, dvesha, aversion towards things that produce unpleasant experiences, hatred, envy, repulsion or dislike or hatred. Raga and dvesha transforms into abhinivesha. So as you like something more and more and more, you become intensely attached to that. Or you averse to something again and again and again, then you become really averse to it. So raga and dvesha turns into abhinivesha, which is intense absorption to enjoy in terms of the likes, or fear of death, the will to live. Raga abhinivesha is intense absorption at mature stage to enjoy a particular object, and dvesha abhinivesha is intense absorption at a mature stage in hatred towards any object. So one is always planning according to these according to the absorption of attachment and aversion. And in Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna talks about this. These are the two cycles that souls fluctuate to. So, due to avidya and past impressions, we act according to attachments or aversion. And we are given a specific covering of false ego that covers us, so that we can, due to past impressions, act according to aversion and attraction. As rag attachment matures, it becomes rag abhinivesha, and as the aversion dvesha matures, it becomes dvesha abhinivesha. So these are the intents, because sometimes they may be just very flickering, but it can become very, very prominent. And when the attachment becomes prominent, it leads to, for example, addiction, right? Or when hatred, aversion, like, for example, there may be nightmares, etc., that becomes very intense. So in that sense, it's aversion and very strong absorption in that. So there's the same diagram, but now when we have strong absorption for attachment and aversion, then they lead to action. And when we have an action, then we get a certain form of suffering that's called current, which is called prarabdha. And we get future suffering, which is aprarabdha. And those actions also then create impressions, and the cycle starts again. And in this way, we basically go through life. Our current suffering also then creates certain impressions, and we then act on that false knowledge or impressions, and we start the cycle again. Attachment and aversion due to false ego, we become more intense and absorbed, and in this way, cycle continues. Now, how the material energy works and binds us to the material world, we'll briefly discuss this. As we go through Prabhupada's books, often the acharyas will refer to the subtle body. The subtle body is called antakarana, inner senses. And the antakarana, subtle body, is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. But the antakarana works, the senses, they all function in relation or triggered through consciousness, contaminated consciousness. And all three, buddhi, mana, and ahankar, intelligence, mind, and false ego, they all have access to vasana, past impressions. So when one comes in contact with sense objects, the first thing that happens is your chitta, your contaminated consciousness triggers that I have contacted something. Like you find, if I got a dead body and I bring a pizza in front of the dead body, nothing happens. But when someone is living, alive, and I bring a pizza, immediately there is an interaction. So the first part of the interaction is the trigger of chitta, contaminated consciousness. And it's contaminated because of false ego, because of ahankar, because of my conditioned. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also goes into detail exactly even before chitta is triggered, how sense objects trigger, goes through the eyes, goes through into your nerves, triggers into your brain, what happens in your mind, etc. We're not going into that detail, but just to know that it's triggered by chitta, contaminated consciousness, and whatever is triggered, whatever you're seeing in terms of, let's say, the pizza, your intelligence starts to analyze that. And it also looks at past impressions and says, okay, what was your experience when you ate the pizza last time? And last time when you had the pizza, it was ecstatic. You loved it. So immediately the mind then, which deals with emotions, also having access to that impressions, thinks, yes, it should create ecstatic emotions, happy emotions. And this way you start feeling excited, you feel happy. So this is how, and obviously your ahankar is there facilitating the conditioned nature, because the pizza triggered, chitta is triggered, you understand it's a pizza and nothing else. It's not like a plate or something, it's a pizza. The buddhi analyzes it, and yes, it's a pizza. And then the mind thinks, oh yes, definitely from the last impressions, you felt nice. And ahankar, because you identifying with yourself as the body, you identify with that emotion. I am happy by eating the pizza. I love pizzas. I will perfect my life by eating pizza. So everything's I in relation to ahankar. And all this gets stored, and then we become either bound or liberated depending on what we do. Okay, so this is in a simple form of what happens internally when we contact the objects of senses. So just a little in detail, the chitta, all the steps occur simultaneously. So all these steps occur at the same time, or instantly, you could say. It's like takes microseconds, nanoseconds, because it's so efficient. Krishna has created such an efficient machine internally. The senses capture the external stimulus, the chitta gets activated. It's not the eye that's interpreting what you see in front of you, but the eye is capturing the image, sending that to the brain. With the buddhi, it's analyzing and understanding that this is a pizza, and then the process continues. Awareness of familiar stimulus. This could be from roop, form, eyes, from taste, which is the tongue, rasa, sparsha, touch, which is from the skin, gandha, smell from the nose, shabda, sound from the ears. And only conscious person can experience. That the buddhi We hear buddhi is not the ability to learn. Buddhi goes back to the database, the vasanas, to find out what kind of stimulus received. Is this a form or smell or taste, etc.? What kind of form or smell or taste, etc.? Example, form of a samosa, smell of a samosa, etc. So different experiences that we get through our senses, the buddhi is able to distinguish. Then the mind tries to find out associated emotions connected with the stimulus. Emotions are conscious mental reactions that are experienced as strong feelings. Was it pleasurable or painful, etc.? Example, what was my last experience with a samosa? Tasty, craving to eat, or awful, I got sick, etc. So that experience one will get as coming from the mind. And then ahankar, connects these emotions to the self. When generic emotions are connected to the self, it makes emotions even stronger. Example, how did I feel when I ate the samosa last time? Joy, painful. These emotions bind one to material world, and the emotions also bind one to the spiritual world. So you can get material emotions and spiritual emotions. We'll speak about that just now. Sense objects are inert and do not have the ability to bind anyone. It's the emotions that bind. It's the attachment and aversion that binds. So sense objects creates an experience which creates relatable emotions, and that binds us to the material world. So this happens in the material platform as well as on a spiritual platform. And Krishna's obvious, Krishna's internal energies are all working to facilitate these experiences. So if it's a material impression, we get material emotion and we get bondage. If it's a spiritual impression, we get spiritual emotions and liberation. Okay, so this functioning of the subtle body of the antakarana can be both liberating and binding. Now, I'm going to use an example of this rat in relation to two sides where we have chocolate cakes, which this scientist, Ivan Pavlov, experimented and did. We do not promote such experiments. In fact, if the scientist is doing this experiment because of sparse impressions, he decided to do this experiment, and therefore he would get the consequence of the experiment, like giving anxiety to the rat or killing the rat. You would get the respective outcome. But the experiment that he did is very instructive and fits in line to what we're discussing. So therefore, we'll share. So he had this rat, and on both sides, on the left and right, he had this piece of cake. So in the phase one, he released the rat, and then he noticed the rat would go to one side or either side to get the cake. So then phase two, what he did was he put an electrical wire in the cake, one of the pieces on the cake on the left-hand side, and he noticed that the rat, was eating the cake, and then going to this side, and while he was eating, I got buzzed, and then he ate again, he got buzzed again. So he felt, oops, this is painful experience. I'm not going to go here. So then he started going to the side where there was no buzz. And this happened for a few days. He would go, get buzzed, and then he would go. Eventually, he kept on going to the right-hand side because there was no buzz there. He was enjoying. So he learned that don't go to that piece of cake because there's a buzz. Then what Ivan did was he moved the wire from the left to the right. Now, next day, when the rat came, it immediately went to the right and got buzzed. And he felt, oops, but yesterday I didn't get buzzed. He tries again and he gets buzzed. Then he goes to this side and he eats the cake. And he noticed that there's no buzz. So then he started becoming conditioned to go to the left because this side he had negative experience. And for a few days, he started going there. Then what Ivan did was, he then randomly put the wires for different days on the left and the right. So now the rat came there, he comes, he goes, starts nibbling and gets buzzed. So he thinks, let me go that side. He goes this side, starts nibbling, gets buzzed. Then he starts going this side, gets buzzed. Eventually, he noticed that the rat would come, go, run to the right-hand side, and before he's eating, he stops. Because he's got that impression that, hold on, I got buzzed. I don't want to touch this cake. Then he runs to this left-hand side. Before he eats the cake, he stops. And he thinks, no, I got buzzed here also. So then he keeps running left and right, not sure what to do. And then what he did on phase 3 was, while the rat is running and not really enjoying either side, he opens the trapdoor and puts a cake in front. And the interesting thing is that a rat does not notice the trapdoor is open, and he does not even see the cake. Because he's absorbed in the attraction and aversion, he's running to and fro. He misses the actual freedom and the cake. So it's a very interesting example of how we also, like the rat, are within this experimental box, which is the material world. And we also have attachments and aversions. Attachment, the cake; aversion, getting shocked and not liking that experience. And we also go from one sense object to another. And in this way, due to the impressions, we are moving to and fro, and we do not see the spiritual world and the pathway to the spiritual world that's open for us, and Krishna waiting on the opposite side for us to come and return back to the spiritual world we have an eternal relationship with. So this is what aversion and attraction does to us. It binds us to the material world. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, being covered, in chapter 7, text 25, being covered by my yoga maya, I am not visible at all, even I am not visible at all times, even to my devotees in my spiritual abodes. And the foolish do not understand that. I, though appearing as the son of Vasudeva, am without birth and certainly have no material birth. So Krishna is there waiting. He can see us and see everything that all living entities are experiencing, but all living entities cannot see him. Because why? There's a curtain that's covering them. And they are covered by false ego, thinking, I'm a rat, I'm a human being, I'm a this, I'm that. And they're busy enjoying in their playground and suffering. So if we embrace the path of devotional service, then please type in the chat, what happens to the vidya? How is the vidya change for us to become free from all suffering? What happens to the ignorance? Or what counteracts the ignorance? So it should decrease, yes. And how does ignorance decrease? With spiritual knowledge, with spiritual understanding. So we get vidya, sambandha gyan. We understand who I am. Oh, I'm not a rat. Oh, I'm not this human being. I'm actually a spirit soul. I belong in the spiritual world. What am I doing here? So with that avidya, our relationship with Krishna, understanding of who we are, understanding of our material world, we begin to change our destiny. What is this false ego, asmita? When we begin to engage in devotional service and we get proper knowledge, what is that asmita transformed into? Dasosmi, and specifically Krishna Das. I am Krishna Das. I am the servant of Krishna. That is my identity. Now, because I have now this identity that I'm Krishna's Das, I'm servant of Krishna, and I understand Krishna is my eternal friend, is the supreme enjoyer, supreme controller. What happens to raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion? How does that pan out? So raga becomes what pleases Krishna. I become attached to those things that give pleasure to Krishna. And I become averse to those things that displease Krishna. So this is how my attachment and aversion changes when I have the proper ego that comes from proper knowledge. Yes. And these things allow us to become closer to Krishna. These things allow us to understand, see the world in its proper perspective. It allows us to direct our energy in a way that allows us to become free. And finally, our absorption is on Sri Krishna. So this is how, by engaging in devotional service, these 5 causes of suffering actually becomes transformed or destroyed by the process of devotional service. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also talks about 4 types of karma, 4 types of reaction. There is aprabdha, which is the store of accumulated karmic reaction. So aprabdha and prarabdha, right? This is A missing here. Well, not missing, but without the A and with the A. So with the A, aprabdha means negation, like stores accumulated of karmic reaction. Then there's ruddha or kutta, which is which is the karma aggregating to become seeds. That means a proclivity, the inclination to engage in action, which then also gives us rise to the bija, which is the karma ready to be experienced, which is really the desire. So inclination, proclivity can give birth to desire, which then gives birth to prarabdha, karmic experience in his life. And when we engage in activity, prarabdha activities or actions, we get prarabdha reaction. Just like if I smoke, I can get cancer. Right? Or let's say I have the desire to smoke, the proclivity to smoke due to past sins. I then develop the desire to smoke. I then smoke, I get lung cancer. But because I engaged in a sinful activity, I also get some sinful reaction on a cosmic level, called prarabdha. Okay, so that these are the 4 types of karmic reactions. Now, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes this from Padma Puran. For those who are engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reactions, whether fructified, in stock, or in the form of a seed, gradually vanish. So no matter where or what form of karmic reaction I have, by engaging in devotional service, gradually they all become destroyed. Now, let's look at this cycle of suffering. Due to avidya or ignorance, or due to past impressions, I engage in sinful activities. Or because of sin, because of ignorance, I develop sinful desires. Because of ignorance and I don't know the truth, I develop wrong desires. These wrong desires, which are bijam, allow me to act on those desires. And therefore I get sinful actions called papa, sinful actions. Those sinful actions delivers two types of reactions. One is aparabdha, unmanifested, and the other is prarabdha. Let me give another example. Due to past sinful, or due to past avidya, ignorance, or even past impressions, I associate with my friends and I develop the desire to drink liquor. Because of that desire, I engage in drinking liquor. Because I drink liquor, I get two reactions, aprabdha and prarabdha. Prarabdha reaction is my liver packs up and I suffer. That's prarabdha in this life. But I also get aprabdha. And aprabdha delivers me two forms of reactions. One is I have to go to a hellish planet. After I leave this world, I go to a hellish planet and I have to get the suffering for drinking liquor, which is they pour hot molten in my mouth and I suffer that. So that's an unmanifested reaction that's coming. It also gives me a kutam, sinful disposition. It increases my proclivity to drink. And that then causes further desire to drink. And then I drink, gives me prarabdha and aprabdha, and the cycle can continue. So this is how all our desires go into this cycle. Sometimes you may hear, just last time I want to do this sinful activity. The problem with that last time is if I do that sinful activity for the last time, it doesn't become the last time. Why? Because part of the unmanifested reaction is that my desire to engage in that activity increases. So even though I said last time with my intelligence, but my proclivity is increases is even more intense, and therefore it never becomes last time. So the best way to break the cycle is at this point, that means get knowledge, educate ourselves, understand our relation with Krishna, study Prabhupada's books, so then we'll know what to do and what not to do. So that way I don't have desires that bind me, but I have desires that liberate me. And I can also tolerate certain desires, knowing that this will not please Krishna. Okay? And then I can also engage in the process of devotional service. By engaging process of devotional service, by getting a higher taste, by becoming purified, by the power of the process of bhakti, all these aspects can be destroyed. Avidya is destroyed, desires are destroyed, even sinful reactions are destroyed. Unmanifested and manifested reactions. Unmanifested and proclivity can be destroyed. Now, prarabdha can be minimized. Just like if I engage in devotional service, I already have a stock of karmic reaction that I meant to suffer in this life. Krishna can minimize those reactions. Krishna can also nullify those reactions. So this is the power of devotional service. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, but those whose sins, material impressions, have been destroyed by the acts pleasing to great souls, Krishna and sadhus, who are free from ignorance arising from duality, free from raga and dvesha, worship me with determination, great steadiness. So by engaging in devotional service, we become free from the dualities, which is anartha nivritti, and then we become steady on the path of devotional service. So this is how the process of bhakti helps us become purified of the duality and become situated nicely on this path. And it allows us to become free from suffering. So bhakti burns away all our karma. Karma means any action that gives rise to a material body. When all your karma is burnt away, there is absolutely no karma left for you to get a body, material body. And because there's no karma for you to get a material body, you get your spiritual body. The beauty of practicing these 9 processes of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archana Vandam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, is that by starting the journey to practice, Kleshagni starts to burn away all your past karmic reactions, desires, etc. Therefore, and it happens at different intervals as you progress, depending on each individual and depending on Krishna's reciprocation, but definitely gets more and you get purified, your karmic storehouse gets destroyed. So by engaging in devotion nicely, your past karmic reactions, desires are getting destroyed, burnt. And if you engage nicely, then you're not creating further reactions. So therefore, at some point in time, all your karmic bank balance is going to be 0. And when that happens, that's liberation. Just like burning firewood is secondary to cooking, byproduct ash, burning karma is just secondary to the real goal of bhakti. So there will be many secondary benefits that come from practicing pure devotional service. Our goal is pure love of Krishna. But as we on this path to pure love of Krishna, there may be many, many benefits. And one of the benefits is all our karma is burnt, and thereby all our suffering is slowly being destroyed. And a classic example is Narad Muni taking his friend Parvata Muni to see one of his disciples. And as they were coming and approaching the hermitage of the disciple, and the disciple saw his spiritual master Narad Muni, immediately started running towards his spiritual master, but he was jumping to and fro. And as he was coming closer, he saw ants, and he was trying to move and maneuver himself so that he wouldn't tramp on the ants. And Narad Muni told Parvata Muni, just see, this disciple, he was Mugrari the hunter. He was half killing animals. But now, because of practicing devotional service, he doesn't even want to kill an ant. Totally, completely transformed. So this is the power of devotional service. So in conclusion, as we water this creeper, this seed that has been sown, and the creeper for this bhakti lata to start growing, the first 2 leaves that manifest is Kleshagni and Subhada. The watering process is hearing and chanting. And today we covered Kleshagni, 5 types of miseries, which is avidya, ignorance, asmita, false ego, raga, attachment, dvesha, hatred, and abhinivesha, absorption in worldly objects or absorption in attachment and aversion. These are the causes of misery because of our ignorance, because of our false ego, because of our attachments, because of our aversions and absorption in those aspects, we are suffering. Whereas by the process of devotional service, we have proper knowledge, we have the proper ego that I'm a servant of Krishna, and our attachments and aversions are in relation to pleasing Krishna or displeasing what displeases Krishna. I accept things favorable and I reject things unfavorable. And I want to become more and more absorbed in hearing and chanting about Krishna. And when that happens, then 4 types of sins, Prarabdha, Aparabdha, Kuta, and Bija, that which is fructified, that which is still to be fructified in a seed form and desire form, they all become burnt, nullified. And in conclusion, if you take a seed, take any seed, mango seed, plant seed, or even any seed, take a mango seed and you shallow fry it, stir fry it. If you stir fry it and then you plant it, that seed will never fructify. So when we fry all our desires that are there, that we're not even aware that are there, all in our conscious and subconscious mind, by the process of devotional service, in the fire of devotional service, we fry all these seeds and they burn all these seeds so that all our past samskaras, all our past impressions, all our past sinful activities, pious, impious, whatever they are, because even pious activities will give birth to material body, they all get burnt and never to sprout. In that way, we become lighter in our heart, we become more free, we become peaceful, we become completely free from all forms of suffering. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gopramanande Hari Hari Bo. Next, tomorrow we're going to be covering the second leaf, which is Subhada. Auspiciousness of bestowing of all auspiciousness. Are there any questions or comments that anyone has? Bhaktin Collins says, Hare Krishna, suffering, quite appropriate subject for me right now. Yesterday, I had a serious fall, fractured left hand and extensive bruising all over. Pain, confined to a bed, and inflammation has given me a fever. What suffering type is this? Please pray for me for healing. So we all should pray for Bhaktin Colleen to become relieved of her suffering that she's going through. And Bhaktin Colleen, yes, this is the suffering that we are speaking about. So for example, you didn't desire to suffer. You didn't desire to fall. But due to past karmic reaction, last life or previous life, there was something that you did which then triggered and came in this current time span to give you that reaction back. Now, how do we deal with this situation? One is, it's painful, no doubt. It causes distress. So we can pray to Krishna. We can cry out to Krishna, my Lord, please, please help me. I am suffering. It's very difficult. Krishna is a person. At the same time, it should encourage us to act properly in the future so that we don't cause any pain to any living entity, mentally, verbally, and physically. And if we do that, we are rest assured that in the future, I'm not going to get surprises. Then, what am I going to do with the current pain that I'm experiencing? I, with folded hands, pray to the Lord. My Lord, I know it's my past karmic reactions. Lord Brahma, in the 10th canto, says this prayer. And Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion says that every devotee should use this as a guideline. What is the guideline? Oh my Lord, due to my past sins, I'm suffering. I deserve worse. But my Lord, you just gave me a token reaction. Thank you so much. I will still continue to worship you, to glorify you, to chant your holy names, and I will never give you up, even though it is very, very painful. And we tolerate and we try our best to continue. And yes, each one goes through different experiences. Your situation is not exactly the same like everybody else is suffering. But this is how we see. And if we can develop this attitude, then this, Acharya's described, becomes our greatest benediction. Because now I understand suffering is not caused by chance. Just like, I went to India years ago. It was in hot weather, etc. When I came back, my left eye was practically, it had blood stains in it. I went to the optometrist, etc. For a few years, lost 90% of my eyesight. So I'm blind in one eye. Now I could say, Krishna, why am I blind in one? I'm trying to preach and I'm trying to, read your books, and but why did I lose one eye? I know that it was due to some karmic reaction, some past karma, some negligence, whatever it is that caused the reaction. At least I can thank Krishna. It's one eye and not both. Thank you. I deserve worse, but you minimize the reaction. Thank you. And I will never give up serving you. So in this way, this is how we should continue. And yes, over time we will heal and become stronger when we learn this lesson of how to deal with suffering. And try to chant Hare Krishna and keep Krishna in your thoughts. Hemanti, very informative class. Thank you very much. Only a pleasure. Amavati says, absolutely wonderful class. Thank you very much. Nirvana says, suffering also encourages us to continue on this. Queen Kunti is praying for suffering. Why? Because that suffering allowed her to always remember Krishna. So the goal is always to remember Krishna. The problem is we already created karma. We already created our mess for our life. And it's a mountain. Bhagavatam says, if you stop acting now, there is an ocean, a mountain, size of Mount Meru, of the Himalayas, of karmic reaction that you have to suffer and enjoy. So we got a lot of stock. The beauty is by practicing Krishna consciousness more seriously, more diligently, more absorbed, more focused, more attentively. The karmic reaction can expedite and get removed faster and faster and faster. Just depends on our intensity. We can remove it instantly if we are serious and fully surrender. And Krishna uses the karma to keep us on track, to keep us serious. Otherwise, we go into enjoying spirit and we forget. And so therefore, Krishna keeps us on track. Bafana says, will it be right to obviously right? Will it be right? It is obviously right not to listen to anyone on the basis that they act to not on the mode of ignorance, but past thought impressions, except that they are really Krishnatized or God authentic on the basis of their expression of knowledge. Can one be even really aware or in fact mentally equanimity by being mindful to one's actions on the basis of impressions of past and present. Lecture was so nice, informative overload for my tiny brain. Relief came from this quote: for those who engage in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of all sinful reactions, whether fructify in stock or in the form of seed, gradually vanish. Very empowering, and to be plated or placed as on the impression of mind for self-realization. Right, so let's see. Will it be right? It's obviously not to listen to anyone on the basis that they act to not to on mode of ignorance, but past or accept that they're really Krishnatized. So, we get advice, we get direction from people that are in different modes, different experiences. Our basis is always validate everything with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Whether it's coming from ignorance, whether it's coming from passion, whether it's coming from goodness. Always have a screen. And our screen is Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Srila Prabhupada becomes the perfect guide for us to validate what is right and what is wrong. And in this way, embrace that. And yes, it's not like we cannot be aware. Even though we are covered, it's not like, remember, it's not that the soul is always in ignorance 24 hours a day, 365 days for the rest of his life. No, we fluctuate. The three modes are competing. So sometimes we're in goodness, sometimes passion, sometimes ignorance. We're competing. So sometimes when in goodness, we can think clearly. So it fluctuates. So everybody fluctuates. So we're trying to optimize when there's goodness to practice spiritual life. So I hope that, if I understood your question, I hope that shed some light on that. Yes. In essence, the talk today was just to explain to you that we have to be very careful what we expose ourselves to. Because every sense object that we expose ourselves to, guess what? It's creating an impression. And because it creates an impression, it's stored. And that impression is going to create desires. So I have to be very careful what I expose myself to. Whether it's through my eyes, through my ears, through my nose, my touch, my taste. In one lecture, Prabhupada, I'll try to share it tomorrow. Prabhupada said, if you can master two activities, eat only Krishna Prasad and try to speak only about Krishna, you will perfect your life. So be careful what you expose. Try, and because we already have been exposed, we try to now purify ourselves through the process of bhakti. He says all the experiences is obstacle, all the experience is obstacles, all we need to do to preserve on Krishna. Here's the thing. It's not only obstacles that can keep us in check. Even good times, just like if I'm healthy and fit and I have plenty of time, I'm not suffering, but that is also conducive for my practice of devotional service. I can take full advantage when I'm healthy and sober to be as Krishna conscious as possible, so that when I'm not sober and I'm suffering, at least I can survive through that. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita never ever says that to those who are trying to serve me, to those who surrender to me, I remove all obstacles forever. No. He says those who surrender to me, I give them the strength to overcome the obstacles. That means we go through the suffering, we go through the obstacles and come out stronger, Krishna conscious on the opposite side. We see Srila Prabhupada's life as a perfect example. Hemavati, is our suffering Krishna's mercy for us to burn our karma? It's our fault, not his. Yet he's so merciful to us, always loving and caring for us. So a devotee sees every situation as Krishna's mercy. Good times, Krishna's mercy. Bad times is not caused by Krishna, it's caused by our past karma, but I see Krishna's hand in there. Why? Because I'm chanting Hare Krishna. And when I'm chanting Hare Krishna, the law of karma is not giving the reaction directly. In fact, Krishna says, Prabhupada says, it's Krishna karma, which means Krishna is taking that same karma and giving it to you. And while he's giving it to you, he could give you the same reaction or he could minimize it. But because it's coming from his hand, it's touched his hand, it's his mercy. It's Krishna karma. So good times, bad times, it's all Krishna karma coming to us, especially if we are chanting the holy names. Thank you very much for everyone's feedback and questions. Tomorrow we will continue with auspiciousness.